When Jada Moore, a weary single mother working the late shift as a janitor at Price Max Supermarket in Atlanta, spots a small boy sobbing over torn sandals, she does what any heart would. She sacrifices her own week's allowance to buy him new shoes. She never imagines that her simple act of kindness will catch the eye of Daniel Hart, a billionaire investor accustomed to buying influence rather than feeling gratitude, and that this one choice, made in the quiet dusk of a Friday, will ripple outward to reshape both their lives. Jada steps out of the employee break room into the fluorescent glare of the store's checkout aisles, her mop bucket trailing behind her like an anchor of her reality. A half-eaten sandwich remains untouched in her lunch tote. She lost track of time again, and now there's barely an hour left before the bus home. She plods towards the exit door, flexing her aching shoulders under the weight of an empty stomach and a week's worth of bills scribbled on a crumpled receipt. Through the glass doors, she sees a small boy wailing at the curb, while his mother kneels beside him, fumbling through her purse. Jada's heart clenches. The child's sandals have given way. One strap hangs by a thread. The mother's tears mirror her desperation. She simply cannot afford new shoes today. Customers hurry past, a blur of indifference. But to Jada, time slows. She remembers her own daughter, Lily, and the nights she has tiptoed into their tiny apartment, afraid of another eviction notice. No child should be forced to trudge home barefoot. Without a word, she turns back inside. The register light blinks idle. She fishes $18 from the envelope of nickels and dimes she's been stashing all week. Money she'd planned to use on a hair trim she postponed so many times she can't even recall her last haircut. Clutching the crumpled bills, she treads through the aisles, her uniform graying under the harsh lights. 2 minutes later, she's at the shoe rack beside the registers, selecting the boy's size. Small, brown sandals with sturdy straps. At the checkout, Jada swipes her store-issued ID and murmurs to the cashier to ring up the shoes. The cashier's brow arches in curiosity, but Jada's expression is resolute. She pays and slips the bag into her mop bucket, covering it with a discarded floor sign. Then she returns to the curb, where the boy's tears have not yet subsided. The mother looks up, surprise and confusion mingling on her face as Jada appears with the bag. I got these for him, Jada says softly, handing over the plastic. Tell him to go home in them. The boy's sobs still shake his small frame, but he immediately darts to tear off his broken sandals. Jada watches his mother press a shaky hand to her mouth, about to speak, perhaps to refuse or to insist on payment. But Jada only smiles. Help someone else when you can, she says, and turns away, her legs already propelling her back toward the store entrance. Inside, she sidesteps the lingering customers and pushes her mop along the gleaming floor tiles, the plastic bag bumping against her bucket. Unseen by her, a man in a tailored blazer and well-shined shoes watches from the checkout lane, his eyes cool, calculating. Daniel Hart is accustomed to transactions, to numbers, to returns on investments. He expected quiet compliance or perhaps to pay for service. He didn't expect philanthropic spontaneity. After her shift, Jada walks the 3 miles home under the fading glow of streetlights. In her small, tidy apartment, her daughter Lily's face beams with relief and pride when Jada steps through the door, displaying the new sandals on the carpet. Mom, you're my hero, Lily whispers. Jada kneels, smoothing Lily's hair, fighting tears she cannot spare, and nods. She's proud, yes, but her relief is tempered by hunger gnawing in her stomach. The next morning, just before dawn, Jada collects broom and bucket for another shift. She brushes Lily's hair, kisses her forehead, and guides her to the school bus stop. Lily waves until the bus disappears, then turns to watch her mother with wide eyes. Be safe, Mama, she calls. Jada nods, the ache in her legs sharpened by gratitude for one steady pair of feet. Work begins with silent routine, sweeping under fruit displays, emptying trash cans, wiping checkout conveyors. She hears the soft whispering of the cashiers, the scuff of carts, the hum of fluorescent lights. She'd think she's better than us, someone mutters when Jada passes, as if helping a child elevates her station. She hears it, but she doesn't stop. Instead, she hums Lily's favorite lullaby in her head, a silent anthem that shields her from bitterness. At dusk, as she's finishing the checklist of spills to clean, her phone vibrates. An unknown number. Jada's heart quickens. Bills are overdue again. She answers. "Is this Jada Moore?" the voice asks. "Yes," she stammers. "This is Daniel Hart. I saw what you did for that boy last night." Jada's knees knock together. "Yes, you don't know me," she says cautiously. "I do now," he replies. "Tell me when you're free to meet." She wants to hang up. She wants to laugh. But the tremor in her chest says something's changed. She agrees. Tomorrow, 6, Price Max Cafe. He does not ask why she helped. He does not ask for proof of hardship. He simply says, "See you then." That night, Jada sits at her kitchen table, with an old lamp's yellow glow trimming the walls. She tries to plan what she'll say. She reminds herself she owes him nothing. Kindness isn't for sale. Still, sleep eludes her as she imagines a stranger knowing her name and her story. At 6 the next evening, Jada arrives at the cafe, clutching her purse like a lifeline. She spots Daniel Hart. No blazer, just jeans and a plain sweater, as if he wanted to blend in. She sits. He offers her water. For a moment, they simply regard each other. He leans forward. "You don't have to accept anything from me," he says. "But I saw what you did, your sacrifice, and I think dignity deserves respect." Jada crosses her arms. "I didn't help for that." "I know." He nods. "That's why I respect it." He slides a manila envelope across the table. Inside is a check for $100, exactly her monthly rent. Jada's breath catches. Tears sting her eyes. "This isn't charity," he says softly. "It's repayment for courage." She stares at the check as if it belongs to someone else. "I can't take this," she whispers. "Please," he insists. "Use it for rent, for peace of mind." She closes her eyes, the weight of it pressing like a sudden tide. She opens them. "I'll accept," she murmurs, "but on one condition." He waits. "That you help start something. Something that honors this choice, not just for me, but for women like me." His expression brightens. "Tell me more." They talk late into the evening. Jada describes a scholarship fund for single moms striving to go back to school. He listens, asks questions, scribbles notes. She believes he's intrigued. She believes he cares. Outside, the parking lot glows under street lamps. Jada steps into the night clutching the envelope as if it were the key to her new beginning. Behind her, Daniel watches until she disappears into the dark. Neither knows exactly what tomorrow will bring, but both feel the unmistakable crack of transformation. And this is just the beginning. When Jada walks into the little cafe the next evening, her heart is a drumbeat in her chest. The warm glow of Edison bulbs casts soft halos on the wooden tables, and the murmur of quiet conversation wraps around her like a blanket. She grips the strap of her worn purse and scans the room until she sees him. Daniel Hart sitting at a corner table, unassuming in a dark sweater and jeans, hands folded before him. For a moment, she wonders if it's a mistake, if he'll ask her to leave, or if this is some elaborate test. Instead, he offers her a steady, open smile. She slides into the chair opposite him, and for a long beat they simply watch each other. Outside, the spring breeze rattles the panes. Inside, the scent of freshly ground coffee drifts between them. Daniel's gaze is respectful, curious, without expectation. Jada settles, folding her arms as though to hold herself together. He reaches into his jacket and pulls out a small notebook, but he tucks it away without a word. The silence stretches until Daniel leans forward. "You don't owe me an explanation," he says softly, "nor do you have to accept anything from me." His fingers graze the edge of the table. "But I wanted to meet you, to hear your story in your own words." Jada's throat tightens. She glances at the envelope tucked in her purse, the rent check he offered. Pride and fear rise in equal measure. She inhales, then exhales. "I did what anyone would do," she says quietly. "I saw a child in need." Her voice trembles and she pauses, waiting for a rebuttal, a challenge. But he remains patient. "That night, I couldn't sleep," she continues. "I kept thinking of my daughter, Lily, and every time I almost fell back to sleep, I sat up again. I wondered why I felt such relief and shame at the same time." She studies his face, searching for judgment. He nods, encouraging her to go on. Daniel brushes a loose strand of hair behind his ear. "Tell me about Lily," he prompts. And so Jada shares what she can carry of her history. The dreams she once held in her freshman composition courses, the scholarship she almost earned before life redirected her path, the grief of her mother's illness, and the exhausted exhilaration she felt the morning Lily was born. She speaks of the tiny apartment where rent was always overdue, of nights when the power was cut off and they huddled under blankets, reciting poems and playing pretend as princesses in castles of cardboard boxes. As she talks, Daniel listens without interruption, his eyes warm and alive. He asks gentle, precise questions. How did you learn to find hope in hardship? What does dignity feel like when you're stripped of it? With each answer, Jada feels a knot in her chest loosen. When she finishes, her voice barely above a whisper, he reaches across the table and lays his hand over hers. "Your kindness was brave," he murmurs. "I saw me." "It was also strategic in a way I never understood until now. Choosing generosity when the world expects you to protect your own scarcity." He withdraws his hand, careful and respectful, and touches the check before him. "I want to offer you this, not as charity, but as a marker. A way to hold yourself when you've given everything else away." He taps the paper, then folds his hands in his lap. "But I also want your help in making something greater." Jada's pulse quickens. She nods slowly, uncertain. She wants to trust, but her life has taught her caution. "What do you have in mind?" she asks. He unfolds his notebook this time and flips to a blank page. "A scholarship fund," he says, "for single mothers returning to education. I want it to be named for someone you love, someone who inspired you." Jada's breath catches. "My mother's name was Edith Grant," she says without hesitating. "She taught me to read before I turned 5, even though she was ill most of my life." Daniel writes, "Edith M. Grant Scholarship." Jada watches ink swerve on the page, shaping her mother's name into a promise. Oh, he sketches out a plan. An initial endowment, partnerships with local community colleges, a committee that includes beneficiaries to decide on awardees. He looks up, eyes bright. But I need someone who knows this world to guide it. Someone who can speak for those who think their voices don't matter. He leans back. I want you to be on the board. She blinks, the impossible weight of possibility settling in. Jada thinks of her uniform, her mop bucket, the fluorescent aisles where she is invisible. Me, she whispers. A scholarship board. He nods firmly. You know the struggle. You know where the barriers hide. He smiles. This is not about fixing you. It's about using what you know to help women step forward. Her mind races. Pictures flash. Lily putting on her sandals that first night. The bus that carries her daughter to school. The corners of their simple apartment, where hope and fear collide. I don't have a degree, she says. How can I help? Daniel folds the notebook and closes it. With your story, with your compassion, with your vision. He pauses. I'll handle the finances. You handle the heart. For the first time in years, Jada allows herself to dream. She imagines women in cap and gown, single mothers crossing a stage, holding their diplomas as their children cheer. She pictures Lily grown, standing proud beside her. The thought twists in her chest and brings tears. Daniel slides a napkin and a pen across to her. What do we do first? He asks. They stay in the cafe long after it closes, laying out steps, establishing criteria for applicants, planning a launch event, reaching out to nonprofits, designing marketing that speaks to dignity rather than pity. Jada sketches logos on the napkin, two hands cupping a graduation cap, a mother and child stepping forward together. At one point, they laugh so easily that Jada nearly forgets she's supposed to be out of her depth. And that's exactly the moment she decides it doesn't matter. When they finally rise, the cafe's empty chairs echo around them. Outside, the night air is cool and expectant. Daniel holds the door for her as she steps into the light. She looks back at the darkened windows where their plans still shimmer. He watches her with an intensity that feels like belief. The next day at PriceMax, Jada arrives to whispers and sideways glances. Her co-workers noticed her absence last night, wondered where she was. Some say she's been promoted. Others speculate she's in trouble with management. She meets their eyes and simply smiles. Nobody asks for details. She doesn't volunteer them. Today, she is more than her title. She cleans aisles with a new purpose. Each sweep of her broom feels like clearing a path for something bigger. When she passes that same woman who whispered, "It's not her level," she holds her gaze and nods. The woman's lips part, uncertain. Jada turns away, letting the silence fill the space. That afternoon, her phone pings with an email. A formal invitation to join the board of the Edith M. Grant Scholarship. Official letterhead, signatures, a launch date 6 weeks away. Jada reads it twice before exhaling. She thinks of Lily's laugh, the surrender of her own fear, and she types back her acceptance. In the following days, Jada attends meetings at sleek offices she never imagined entering. She learns to speak in grant proposals and budgets, to articulate impact metrics and community outreach. At first, her language feels foreign, but she leans on the stories in her heart. She tells panelists about nights without electricity, of writing essays by candlelight, of reading poetry with her daughter. Her words resonate. People lean forward, their eyes brightening in understanding. She becomes a bridge between worlds, the polished world of philanthropy and the raw world of those who struggle unseen. She befriends other board members, educators, lawyers, social workers, and in their conversations, she finds allies. She speaks of barriers, lack of daycare, unreliable public transportation, the stigma of poverty. She pushes for wraparound support services, emergency grants, mentorship programs. With each recommendation, she carves policy with compassion. Meanwhile, Daniel watches from the sidelines, offering guidance but never overshadowing her voice. He sends texts at odd hours. Thinking of you. How can I support? Or, did you know we have a logo draft? Can't wait to hear your thoughts. When the scholarship's launch date arrives, he invites her to stand beside him on the stage of a small auditorium packed with families and supporters. She finds Lily waving from the front row, clutching a handmade poster that reads, "Thank you, Mama." As Jada steps to the microphone, her knees tremble. The auditorium hushes. She takes a breath and begins. When I was a girl, my mother taught me that kindness isn't measured by what you have, but by what you give. She looks out at the faces, some weary, some hopeful, all attentive. She shares her journey from the supermarket floor to this moment, and she sees tears glisten in unexpected eyes. At the end, the applause is a thunder of hands and hearts. Later, Daniel finds her backstage. He lifts her hand and squeezes it. You did it, he says, pride shining in his gaze. She smiles, not because of his approval, but because she sees what's possible when kindness meets courage. That night, as she walks home, this time on well-lit sidewalks, Jada carries no envelope, no fear of eviction. Instead, she carries the knowledge that her small act of generosity has become a movement. The Edith M. Grant Scholarship will open doors for women who thought theirs were forever closed. And though her journey is far from over, the road never felt so clear. When the morning sun filters through the curtains of Jada's apartment, she awakens not to the familiar dread of another rent notice tacked to the door, but to a gentle warmth spreading through her chest. The first light finds her already dressed, no larger than her old cleaning uniform, but pressed and neat, standing at her tiny kitchen table, with an envelope of congratulatory letters from the inaugural recipients of the Edith M. Grant Scholarship. Each note bears the shaky handwriting of a woman who dared to believe in herself again. A mother returning to nursing school, a young woman pursuing a degree in social work, another studying environmental science so that her daughter can grow up with a cleaner air. Jada reads them one by one, tears blurring words of gratitude that call her inspiration, hope, proof that kindness matters. She feels Lily stir in the bedroom, and with a steadying breath she folds the letters, tucks them into her bag, and heads out for the day. This time, walking to the university campus, where she has been invited to guest lecture. On the bus ride over, the cityscape of Atlanta passes by like a slideshow of her past and her future. Cracked sidewalks beside gleaming towers, neon store signs next to brick row houses with laundry lines strung between them. In the seat across the aisle, a woman cradles textbooks and glimpses at Jada's name badge pinned to her blazer. Board member, Edith M. Grant Scholarship. The woman's eyes widen with recognition and relief, as if the title itself carries an unspoken promise of sanctuary. Jada returns a small, genuine smile, recalling how little she once believed such a title could ever belong to her. At the lecture hall, she finds seats already filling with sleepy-eyed students and their children. A panel of distinguished professors sits at a long table, their robes heavy with tradition. Among them is Daniel Hart, looking relaxed in a simple shirt and slacks, his tie loosened as if he, too, feels the weight of this moment's solemnity, fused with possibility. When it's her turn, Jada steps to the lectern, her heart fluttering like a hummingbird's wings. But she steadies herself with the memory of that first Friday evening, when she chose compassion over self-preservation. She begins by thanking the professors, the board, and the scholarship winners for believing that a single act of generosity can ignite a movement. Then she shares the story of the torn sandals and the crumpled $18 bill, not as an anecdote of pity, but as a testament to the power of choice. She speaks of dignity, that fragile, stubborn ember inside every person who dares to stand tall when the world seems determined to break them. She tells them that dignity is neither bought nor sold. It is earned through every decision to uplift rather than cast aside. The room hushes as mothers and grandmothers nod, wiping away tears. Children lean forward to catch every word, clutching security blankets or the straps of their backpacks. When she speaks of her daughter, Lily, Jada's voice cracks with love and apology. Love for the child who inspired her, an apology for the years of hardship that Lily endured alongside her. And then she makes her invitation. Walk with me. Not because you owe me, but because we all owe each other. When one of us steps forward, the ground trembles beneath our feet, and that tremor can become an earthquake of change. After the lecture, a small delegation of students approaches her with proposals: a campus childcare cooperative, a peer mentoring network, a fund to cover emergency textbooks. Jada listens, jotting notes on a pad Daniel later will carry in his own neat handwriting. She feels the thrill of creation, of ideas taking shape like seedlings pushing through asphalt. Each suggestion becomes a seed for expansion. New chapters of the scholarship program, partnerships with vocational schools, a traveling outreach team to bring resources to rural counties where poverty isolates mothers from educational opportunity. That afternoon, she returns to Pricemax, not as a janitor, but as a guest of honor at a small ceremony organized by her former colleagues. Balloons bob in the cleaning supply aisle, a hastily taped banner declaring, "Congratulations, Jada," hangs crookedly between mop handles and paper towel dispensers. The store manager shakes her hand with visible pride. The cashier offers a bouquet of cheap carnations, and even the colleagues who once sneered now offer shy congratulations. When they ask her what comes next, she tells them she'll be splitting her time between the scholarship board and teaching once-a-month workshops on financial literacy for single parents, because dignity requires not just tuition, but also the tools to build a sustainable life. She sees their faces soften, as if for the first time they understand that a janitor can become an agent of change. That evening, Jada and Lily sit side by side on their small couch. Lily's school uniform is folded neatly on her lap. Her little legs swing freely off the edge. Over steaming mugs of cocoa, Lily asks, "Mama, do you think I could win a scholarship someday?" Jada laughs softly and ruffles Lily's hair. "You're already my most brilliant scholar," she says. "But sure, you can have your own grant one day, if that's what you want." Lily's eyes shine with the gravity of a child who already understands the world's possibilities better than most adults. "I'll help someone else, too," she promises, "just like you did." Jada cups Lily's hand, feeling its warmth like a tether that keeps her heart anchored. Meanwhile, Daniel oversees the scholarship's second application cycle. He hosts virtual info sessions for applicants juggling daycare, jobs, and community college classes. He collaborates with Jada to introduce a short-term emergency fund, small grants for car repairs, medical bills, or utility payments that could derail a single mother's entire educational journey. Under their guidance, the scholarship evolves beyond tuition stipends into a holistic support network that addresses housing stability, mental health counseling, and peer mentorship. The ripple effect becomes a wave. Local news outlets cover success stories of scholarship recipients going on to become nurses, teachers, and entrepreneurs. At a gala held 6 months later, the ballroom sparkles with candlelight and the hum of conversation. Award-winning journalists, nonprofit leaders, and local politicians mingle at round tables, each bearing a card listing the names of scholarship winners and their chosen fields of study. Jada enters alongside Daniel, and the room parts like red seas. Cameras flash, but Jada feels neither vanity nor discomfort. She knows this stage is not hers alone. When she takes the podium, she looks out at the crowd and sees rows of faces illuminated by hope, proof that compassion compounded over time becomes social change. Her speech is brief but profound. She urges each person in the room to seek the overlooked human in their daily lives, and to choose generosity, even when the ledger books of society say it's unprofitable. Afterwards, a tall woman with eyes like molten chocolate approaches. She's a former scholarship recipient who now works at a community health clinic. She wraps Jada in an embrace and says, "You saved more than my education. You restored my belief that I matter." Words like these have become commonplace for Jada, yet each one feels like a new baptism of purpose. That night, as she returns to her apartment, she carries not just the echo of applause, but the conviction that her life's trajectory, once linear and confined, has become a constellation of possibilities. On the walk home, Jada pauses at the street corner where she first bought those sandals. A small shrine of flowers and handwritten notes now adorns the curbside, left by neighbors who remember the story. One note reads, "Kindness planted here." Another, "Because you ran barefoot, someone else now strides tall." Jada kneels, smoothing a painted pebble into place, and whispers a quiet thanks to the unnamed child whose tears set everything in motion. The night breeze carries away her whispered words, scattering them into the dark like seeds. Inside her apartment, Jada finds Lily asleep with textbooks spread around her on the couch. She tucks a blanket around her daughter, smoothing her hair as if tucking away every fear. Jada turns to the small shelf by the window, where she keeps the inaugural scholarship letters, and adds a framed photograph of the first cohort of scholarship recipients in graduation robes. Their smiles are wide, triumphant. Ribbons of hope arc between them and Jada like invisible threads. As she flicks off the light, Jada realizes she is no longer defined by scarcity or by the job that once confined her. She is defined by choice, the choice to act when others passed by, to demand dignity for herself and for every mother who carries both dreams and diapers in her arms. And in that moment before sleep claims her, Jada sees the road ahead, illuminated not by the fluorescent supermarket tubes of her past, but by the dawn of countless tomorrows for women who will follow the path she helped clear. Because she bought shoes for a crying child, the world bent toward justice. Because she accepted help without shame, she forged a partnership that would outlast both of them. Because she dreamed aloud, she gave an entire community permission to dream too. And as the city hums beyond her windows, full of people who have yet to learn her name, yet whose lives she has already changed, Jada knows that this story is bigger than her, bigger than a single act or a single check. It is the story of how one person's kindness can become the foundation upon which a generation stands. And that is the greatest transformation of all.